With all the rumors, the speculation, the back and forth arguments about where Kawhi Leonard will end up this offseason, if he's going to stay as a Toronto Raptor or if he's going to leave in the free agency for Los Angeles, Brooklyn, or somewhere else, all this information, the speculation, it's been piling up and it's become exhausting. So for you guys, instead of making any points about where he will probably stay or where he's likely to stay, where he might stay, I've just compiled all of the arguments together in one place to make a definitive list of all the pros and cons about Kawhi Leonard and this upcoming free agency situation. So instead of making any points, trying to convince you guys one way or the other, I'm going to leave it all out on the table, all out on the internet, and I'm going to let you guys decide what you think is likely to happen. Before we get started, big shout out to our boy Jack Armstrong, TSN Sports, winner of, by the Canadian Academy, Canadian Screen Awards. He was the winner of the best sports analyst. So big congratulations to Jack Armstrong, absolute legend. Not even in the making. He's an instant classic. And if you've never tuned into a Raptors game, I'm sure you have. You're not listening to this podcast if you don't listen to the Toronto Raptors live. He's an absolute delight. Him and the whole crowd. Matty D, Leo, they're all fantastic, but Jack Armstrong especially, he's been doing a fantastic job, ties the whole thing down, so really fantastic, very deserving of that award. Second, I'm going to put it up there. We're seeing a lot of Kawhi Leonard's New Balance. Obviously he has that deal signed, so he's wearing the gear like he has to. He's promoting it. Question to you, cop or drop? Because everybody thought that this is grandpa clothing or grandpa style, but he's trying to make it hip, and they're changing the look a bit. So how do you guys feel about the clothing? We're gonna show some shoes later on in the podcast too. So so those 2 points. But without any further ado, let's get into it. The definitive list of the arguments surrounding Kawhi Leonard's offseason choices: the Raptors, the Clippers, the Nets, or somewhere else, but likely one of those 3 teams, from what everybody says. We have the obvious, the pros for staying as a Toronto Raptor. You're staying on a winning team. You're on a championship contender. You have one of the best minds in basketball right now in crafting a team with pieces that nobody would ever expect, Masai Ujiri, and what he's been able to do. And you have one of the best fan bases in the entire NBA in terms of average capacity and in terms of having, only one team in the entire country. So you have an entire country basically supporting one player or an entire team, but obviously the face of the franchise. The cons, or the pros, I guess, for leaving Toronto Raptors. Wanting to be in LA, right? That's his team before coming to the Toronto. That was apparently what was voiced. Going to the Clippers specifically, you have the owner in Jerry West, and he has been part of the Heat. I believe he's part of the Lakers. He is arguably the best owner in basketball right now, and what he's been able to do in flipping a team around and making them become championship contenders and win championships with them. The Clippers have space for 2 max contract guys. Then obviously somewhere else outside of Canada usually is going to get better weather season round. So those are the main points that are constantly being brought up. Those are all the arguments. And then you have the concrete evidence, as per Forbes, is, to get into the nitty-gritty, coming to Toronto. And if anybody's confused about how salaries and how the taxes work and the difference between Canada and the United States, this is how it breaks down. Incoming to Canada, Kawhi Leonard's salary was $20,099,000, basically $20 million, taxed at Ontario's 53.53% rate, compared to San Antonio's 37% U.S. federal tax rate. So Kawhi Leonard owes about $2.07 million more in taxes as a result of the trade to the Toronto Raptors. However, there was a trade kicker paying about $3 million from the San Antonio Spurs if he was to get traded. Obviously he did, which means in the end he ended up netting or profiting almost $1 million, about $900,000 something dollars, in coming to Toronto. DeMar DeRozan, on the other hand, he ended up, as you can suspect, going the other way. So because he had $83 million left in his contract, he ended up saving $8.56 million in taxes by playing with San Antonio rather than Toronto. Obviously not up to him, but he ends up making more money. So Kawhi Leonard, you're saying, what does this mean, right? Because the Clippers can sign max contract guys. Can he get more money? Everybody knows no. If he opts out of his contract after this season, then the Raptors can offer him the most money, 5-year, $190 million at the higher tax rate. However, any other team can offer him at most a 4-year, $141 million contract. So it still ends up being more money that he would make, or the most money possible that he would make in staying for Toronto. Take it as you may. Either of those sums is a lot to be making for doing something that you love doing, playing basketball day in and day out. So next, the pros. And put it up on the board here. Kawhi Leonard shoes. Jurassic Park custom. I mean, that's interesting. Those are really cool shoes. And again, copper drop. This is the New Balance look. People are very suspicious of it so far, but it's working for him. He's averaging statistically best stats of his career, and he's playing really well for the Toronto Raptors, even in New Balance shoes. And then we have, of course, images of Kawhi Leonard and Kyle Lowry vibing, or seemingly vibing, laughing, sharing laughs on the court. That's been an issue of speculation this entire season long, is he really meshing with his teammates? And we now have Kyle Lowry. My gosh, it's sometimes hard to pronounce the names or to separate the distinction between the names, but Kyle Lowry is finally on The Green Room with Danny Green. That's a fantastic podcast. I'll put a little clip up now. Boom.
Listen, I've said this to the media. I've said this to everybody. It's a lot to Kawhi that people don't know. He's actually not as quiet as y'all think he is. He's a very funny and likable guy. Really, he really is a fun guy. Like people make fun of it, he really is that.
And basically, what he's saying is all of this sort of overhype and speculation about him being quiet. It's not fair. You're not getting what's happening in the locker room. You're not getting all the time that they spend together in practice and outside of the basketball court. He's a vocal guy, more vocal than he would let on to, more vocal than any of the media sort of pays attention to or would be able to see, and they're having fun. And of course, on top of that, the Raptors have been successful. So this is a main argument as well. Nobody knows what Kawhi Leonard wants to do besides himself, because it's all in his head. And that's, of course, true. And so these things, these little pictures, these little moments are often discounted in an argument. But this is what happiness looks like. And this is going to sound like a very fluffy, very vanilla, like a very high level. It doesn't seem like something that can actually be used as concrete evidence. But psychology behind sports. If you see somebody like Kyrie Irving, right? And you can do on your own, if you're interested into it, a deeper dive into what the psychology behind sports is. But if you look at a guy like Kyrie Irving, who's obviously he's in the exact same situation where he's on a team that's good and they could be doing really well, and he's being offered a lot of money, but he's not enjoying the situation. So it is fair game to use little laughter, little moments as evidence and not just speculation, because it makes an impact when you're deciding where you want to go and spend a significant portion of your life. You spend a lot of time with these players. You're invested with them completely. So this is something that actually could be used as a persuasion piece to make Kawhi Leonard want to stay with the Toronto Raptors. Whether he will or he won't, that's, again, up to you guys to decide. Now, finally, the cons. The reasons that he would want to leave Toronto, as per, I'm going to put it up, boom, Stephen A. Smith.
He's made it very, very clear, or at least his people have in the past, that he wants to be in L.A.
All right, so he's saying basically he's banking on Kawhi Leonard going to the Clippers, and obviously you could say equally as much for him going to the Nets. Again, the main points are he or his camp had said or stated that he wanted to be in LA. He wanted to be somewhere where the weather was nice, or where he's not focused on being necessarily the number one guy, but it's all of these littler points to being on a team that he would rather play in, to be a guy that's able to stay in the United States. Other clues that people are looking at the more qualitative things, and how much Kawhi Leonard is resting and what this load management really means. Is it actually an indication that Kawhi Leonard doesn't want to be playing as many games as possible for the Raptors because he's resting himself for bigger and better things? He's constantly asked. He was asked on Serge Ibaka's food show, or he's been asked by different media members constantly throughout the entire season about what he wants to do in the next season, and he's consistently silent. He won't answer. He'll change the topic. So all of these points can lead people to believe that if he was if he knew for certain that he wanted to stay in Toronto, then he wouldn't need to put up a facade. He wouldn't need to divert the question. He would be confident enough to say, I want to re-sign. But he's at least allowing himself to stay open to the option to, with as little difficulties as possible to seek other things in the free agency. There's really not a lot of concrete evidence in either camp, I guess, besides the money argument. But this is the things that people are saying. You can decide whether or not the arguments are persuading or leaning you to believe that Kawhi Leonard will want to stay, or if the few arguments that are, because really there's more arguments towards the Toronto Raptors side, but perhaps because most people are considering that Kawhi Leonard will leave, that maybe the arguments on behalf of him leaving are more substantial. They're more impactful. So this is up for you guys to decide. I'm leaving this comment section hopefully wide open. I want everybody to sound off. If there's anything, I said that this is a definitive list, but if there's anything that I missed, you toss that in there into the comments, and then I'll revise it. I'll change my statement, and I'll add it in there. I'm excited to see what you guys have to say, because obviously there's been a lot of speculation and people saying this is what's going to happen, this is why, but not very often that you hear the reasons for both sides. So if you made it this far, like and subscribe. You guys are the best, and I mean, there's only 7 games left, so obviously this is not the most important information right now, but it's fun to talk about. So let me know what you think. Read all the comments, and they're always exciting. So cheers.